So, Kahnawake Kahsennenhawe Sky-Deer. Today I want to present to you the Draft Kahnawake Residency Law. I'm sure you've been hearing about it in the community probably for the last 2 years. The reason why I felt it was important to present a PowerPoint on some of the components of the Draft Residency Law is because it's completely new. For those who don't know, there was a time when it was a part of the formerly known membership law. So all of the components of membership and residency were kind of jumbled into one law, and we had a lot of issues with enforcement. So as we were amending the Kahnawake membership law, which is now called the Ietsénhaienhs of Kahnawake law, we received a mandate from the community to hive off all of the sections that pertain to residency, because we found that people in the community who were getting upset about issues of membership that wasn't the issue. It was more about who was living in Kahnawake, who had entitlement to reside here, and we needed to develop a mechanism to be able to permit people to reside in the community. In light of the recent Bill S3, we know that now more than ever, there's going to be a requirement for Kahnawake to take control over who could reside in our community. So therefore, we went to the community in 2017 and we got the mandate for a urgent residency law. Understandably, it's taken this long to get to this point because there were factors that were outside of our control. Number one was that the Ietsénhaienhs of Kahnawake law had to pass first because there's a lot of definitions and components that have overlap into this law. There was also, the federal legislation on cannabis, and we had to respond to that, and a lot of our time and energy went into developing legislation there, so this kind of got pushed. But now we're at this juncture. We've been doing community engagement on Bill S3, and people thought it was important for us to develop a law that governs who could reside in Kahnawake. So with that, I just wanted to give an introductory opening statement about this law and why it's here now, and we'll go through the presentation and hopefully you'll have a better understanding before we go to the hearing on March 21st to get approval for this law to come into effect in our community. And I'll remind everybody that because it is an urgent law, once it is passed, it has 1 year and a day to go back into the regular CDMP process. So at that point, the community can go through it extensively, and if there's any changes that we need to make. But in the interim, we felt it was important to get something passed to protect our community. So with that, here's a brief overview of decision making and the reviews and appeals. So we are going to have to empower a residency registrar. They will be able to verify and decide on applications for approved Kahnawake resident permits. They will also decide on revocation complaints. We're going to have to hire a compliance officer. They are going to decide on eviction complaints, and they will issue notices of eviction. And then we'll have to empower a community review board, what we're calling the CRB. So on application, they may review decisions of the residency registrar or the compliance officer where 1, due process was not followed, 2, the laws of natural justice were not adhered to, 3, there was bias, 4, the decision was manifestly unreasonable, 5, there was an absence of jurisdiction, or 6, there was a mistake of law. Later on, once we have our functioning Justice Act, the Court of Kahnawake will be the appeal of decisions of the CRB. So it was important for us to build in checks and balances, and to ensure that community members or people who don't meet the criteria to be a resident, and evictions, that there's going to be due process, and if it's not done properly, there's appeal mechanisms built into this law. So who will be able to reside in Kahnawake? entitlement to reside are definitely number one, Kahnawake of Kahnawake, and those who meet the criteria as set out in the Kahnawake of Kahnawake law, or who are on the Kahnawake registry. And two, a minor child who was adopted by a Kahnawake of Kahnawake prior to November 10, 2003, which was the enactment of the membership law. And then we have those who will be given permission to reside. And number one is an approved Kahnawake resident. Two is a person who possesses a valid permit. All other people are not permitted to reside on the territory and may face eviction if a complaint is filed against them. The following are eligible to be authorized as approved Kahnawake residents. 1. A person who has 3 Kahnawake of Kahnawake great-grandparents and has immediate family and community ties. 2. A person who has 2 Kahnawake of Kahnawake great-grandparents, has immediate family, community ties, and who was raised in the community. 3. A person with Ietsénhaienhs ancestry who was adopted as a minor child by a Kahnawake of Kahnawake and has immediate family and community ties. 4. A Ietsénhaienhs Dega who was married to a Kahnawake of Kahnawake prior to the 1981 moratorium and is still married and residing with their spouse, or is still residing and was widowed while residing in the territory. So those are the 4 criteria of people who could be approved Kahnawake residents. The next category of individuals will be permit holders. There are 4 types of permits that a person may apply for. 1, minor child permit. 2, a residency permit. 3, work education permit. And 4, a humanitarian permit. A permit holder is obligated to renew the permit or apply for a new permit prior to their permit expiring. If the permit holder does not apply or is not issued a renewal or a new permit, they must leave the territory on the date their permit expires. So I'll go into further detail on the 4. So a minor child permit. A minor child who is not recognized as a Kahnawake of Kahnawake or is an approved Kahnawake resident and resides with a parent or guardian who is an approved Kahnawake resident or a valid permit holder must have a permit to reside on the territory. The parent or guardian must apply for the permit for the minor child and prove that the minor child will be or is currently residing with them. Minor child permits will be valid until the minor child reaches the age of majority, which is 18, or has their permit revoked in accordance with the law. Residency permit. The following people are eligible to obtain a 3-year residency permit. 1, a person who has Ietsénhaienhs ancestry and A, is married to or living in a common law relationship with a Kahnawake of Kahnawake, or B, has immediate family and community ties. 2, a Ietsénhaienhs Dega who was adopted prior to November 10, 2003 by a Kahnawake of Kahnawake, and A, has reached his or her age of majority. B, has been raised in the community since the date on which he or she was adopted, and C, has immediate family and community ties. 3, a person who has sufficient knowledge of the Kahnawake language and Kahnawake culture as evidenced by the results of a language and culture test taken in accordance with the regulation on language and culture testing and has immediate family and community ties. So you could basically look at this as our own immigration type law of who could get a permit to reside in our community. We know that there are Ietsénhaienhs people who come from other communities. We know that there were non-Ietsénhaienhs people who were adopted prior to the 2003 membership law. And then there might just be other individuals who want to be a part of the community who don't meet the criteria, but if they have sufficient knowledge in the language and culture, we are going to develop a test. This was asked in the consultation that we develop something like this. So if people can pass that, then possibly they can get a residency permit. We also have work education permit. So a work education permit will be valid for 1 year. The following are eligible to apply. 1, a person who has Ietsénhaienhs ancestry, and A, is working within the territory, or B, is attending an educational facility within proximity of the territory. If the duration of the applicant's work or education is significantly less than 1 year, the residency registrar may issue a work education permit for less than 1 year. They could also be denied based on ineligibility criteria. The humanitarian permit. To apply for a humanitarian permit, the person must, 1, be terminally ill and need assistance or lodging from an immediate family member who is Kahnawake of Kahnawake who resides on the territory. 2, be providing assistance to a Kahnawake of Kahnawake who is terminally ill. 3, be providing assistance to a Kahnawake of Kahnawake who has a disability or illness which requires specialized care. The residency registrar will determine the length of each humanitarian permit to a maximum of 1 year, and again, they can be denied based on ineligibility criteria. So those were the 4 types of permits. So basically, here's a summary of residency in Kahnawake. We have the who, how, the duration, and the process for removal. So we'll start with the first one. So Kahnawake of Kahnawake, formerly known as members, those who are on the KKR, it's automatic entitlement to reside. The duration is forever, unless they lose their entitlement to reside under the Kahnawake of Kahnawake law or KKL. The process for removal is once their entitlement to reside has been revoked under the Kahnawake of Kahnawake law, they may be subject to eviction. The next one, approved Kahnawake residents. How? They have to apply to the residency registrar and prove their criteria. The duration of residency is forever unless they lose their AKR recognition under the Kahnawake Residency Law. And the process for removal is a complaint to the residency registrar to revoke their approved Kahnawake resident recognition. If successful, they may be subject to eviction. Minor child permit holder. Again, the parent guardian who is either an approved Kahnawake resident or a permit holder applies to the residency registrar proving their criteria. The duration is until they turn 18. And the process for removal is a complaint to the residency registrar to revoke the permit. If successful, may be subject to eviction. Residency permit holder. They must apply to the residency registrar proving criteria. It's a 3-year permit, that's the duration. The process for removal, complaint to residency registrar to revoke permit. If successful, may be subject to eviction. Work education permit holder. They have to apply to the residency registrar, again, proving the criteria. Their duration is for 1 year, unless the work education is significantly less than 1 year. Process for removal is a complaint to the residency registrar to revoke the permit. If successful, may be subject to eviction. And the last one, humanitarian permit holder, must apply to residency registrar proving criteria. The duration is at the discretion of the residency registrar to a maximum length of 1 year. Process for removal, complaint to residency registrar to revoke permit. If successful, may be subject to eviction. So again, this is the way we've set up the application process for approved Kahnawake residents and for permits. There is an application form that needs to be completed with an application fee. This fee will be waived for the first year for those who qualify to be approved Kahnawake residents. So we're kind of encouraging, as once this law passes, for the people who fall into that criteria to apply within the first year. Again, the verification and review by the residency registrar of all the information in the application. There will be a public notice of the application. Then there's an opportunity for objections from Kahnawake of Kahnawake. There could be an interview with the applicant and any other relevant party, only as required. Then a decision is rendered by the residency registrar on the application. Will consider application criteria, objections, and ineligibility criteria. And if they are approved, there is an oath of respect that must be signed if they are granted residency permit or approved Kahnawake resident recognition. Here is the obligations of approved Kahnawake residents and permit holders to comply with the codes, laws, and regulations applicable in the Mohawk territory of Kahnawake, respect and encourage Kahnawake language and Kahnawake culture, and respect and protect Mother Earth, to update the residency registrar regarding any changes to the information provided in the application. Here are the ineligibility and revocation criteria for approved Kahnawake residents and permit holders. Has through an act or omission directly or indirectly contravened a provision of this law, is a danger to the community, has been involved in criminality or organized criminality, has directly or indirectly misrepresented themselves or withheld material facts relating to a relevant matter, does not possess sufficient knowledge of Kahnawake language and Kahnawake culture, allows a person to reside on the territory who does not have a right to reside pursuant to Section 4 of the law, or is not an approved Kahnawake resident or who does not have a valid permit, and has committed a material breach of a Mohawk law, tradition, or custom. So any breach of any of these criteria could be cause for revocation or ineligibility to be a resident in Kahnawake. So again, we talked about how a complaint triggers a process to see if someone should be evicted. So to trigger the eviction process, a Kahnawake of Kahnawake must submit a valid complaint to the registrar/compliance officer, depending on the situation, concerning a person who does not have the entitlement or permission to reside or who is in contravention of this law. The office of the Kahnawake registry will not be investigating cases without a valid complaint having been submitted. So if they're not on the KKR, they're not an approved Kahnawake resident, and they don't have a permit, the eviction complaint goes to the compliance officer for eviction. For somebody who is an approved Kahnawake resident or has a permit, revocation complaint to the residency registrar to get AKR or the permit revoked, which will then lead to eviction. If it's a Kahnawake of Kahnawake, the action in the court of Kahnawake to have the entitlement to reside revoked under Section 15 of the Kahnawake of Kahnawake law. So any of the three different kinds of permit holders or entitlement to reside can face eviction based on any breach of the laws. Here is the removal process for non-KKR, non-AKR, and no permit. A eviction complaint would go to the compliance officer. A decision will take place from the compliance officer. If the decision is that they are not allowed to reside, they will, number one, get a notice of eviction. After that, there will be an eviction order from the court, and then the third will be the actual process of eviction. The removal process for an approved Kahnawake resident permit: a revocation complaint to the residency registrar to revoke the approved Kahnawake resident authorization or permit. A decision is rendered by the residency registrar. If the decision is to revoke the approved Kahnawake resident authorization or permit, the compliance officer is informed. The individual is then given, number one, a notice of eviction. Number two, then comes an eviction order, and then the third part is the actual eviction. Here is the removal process for somebody on the KKR. There will have to be action in the court of Kahnawake to have their entitlement to reside revoked under Section 15 of the Kahnawake of Kahnawake law. The decision of the court of Kahnawake will then be whether or not to revoke entitlement to reside. If that's the case, the compliance officer is informed. They are given a notice of eviction. Then there's the second part, which is an eviction order. And then the third part is the actual eviction from the community. So because I said this is all new, and because the whole process of residency was captured within the membership law, this was some of the direction in consultation with the community when we did the survey. Formerly, it was Chief Rhonda Kirby who was heading the residency law But after the Kahnawake law passed, and because of the overlays and the connection that, residency and membership kind of have, I decided to take over or I got a mandate from the council table to take over this residency law. It is now posted on the KahnawakeMakingDecisions.com website as of today. So we would encourage the community to review this law, hence why I'm doing this PowerPoint presentation for the community to get a better sense of what's coming, and that this came at the direction of the community to get a stronghold on who is residing in our community, because for far too long it's been very lax, and people come and go and we don't know who's coming into our community. So this is the product that we've developed. As I mentioned, there's going to be a hearing on this through the community decision-making process on March 21st. It's a Thursday. It's going to be held at KSCS building from 6 till 8:30. We hope that you will come there prepared to support this law. Please review the law, as I mentioned, in its entirety. If you don't have access to the internet, you can come here to the main Mohawk Council of Kahnawake building and we will get a copy for you. So with that concludes the PowerPoint presentation today, an overview of the draft Kahnawake Residency Law. We feel like it's another important stepping stone in our ability to control aspects of our life here in Kahnawake. We know the first part of having the Kahnawake of Kahnawake law is who is a part of us, who is the we, who belongs here based on our families and our connection to our ancestors who were here before us. Residency law is the next component in terms of who could reside here. And then in the future, we know we're going to have to develop other legislation when it comes to our lands and who's able to hold and own lands in our community. So Nyawakoa for your time. Again, if you have any questions, Kahsennenhawe Sky-Deer Ietsénhaienhs Kahsennenhawe Sky-Deer. And thank you for your time. Tony Awanige, Nyawa.